All right, listeners, buckle up,
Okay.
because today we're taking a deep dive into a topic you might not expect.
Definitely a bit off the beaten path.
We're talking about autism and
Wait for it.
claircognizance.
Yeah, you heard that right.
That inner knowing, that gut feeling, that I just know it kind of thing.
Yes.
We're exploring this based on, get this, cheap ABA autism and claircognizance, unlocking the secrets of inner knowing.
Catchy title, right.
And the source suggests that, hold on to your hats, folks, autistic individuals might actually be more likely to have these abilities.
Pretty wild, huh?
So are you ready to unlock some secrets of inner knowing?
Let's dive in. The source jumps right into defining claircognizance, and it's basically, as you said, knowing something without understanding how you know it.
Like, how does that even work?
Right, it's like those aha moments when a solution just pops into your head, seemingly out of nowhere.
Or that gut feeling you get about something, that unshakable knowing.
Or you just suddenly have a piece of information in your mind that you don't remember learning.
Oh, tell me about it. Sometimes, and this might sound weird, the best ideas for this show just hit me, like, in the shower.
Like your brain's been working on it in the background.
Exactly. So, okay, I get claircognizance, but what's the link to autism? How do these two things connect?
Well, the source points out that autistic individuals tend to be incredibly sensitive to patterns and energy.
Makes sense. We talk about that a lot in relation to sensory sensitivities.
Right, and the idea here is that this heightened sensitivity combined with, some unique aspects of brain structure and function in autistic individuals.
So there's an actual biological basis for this.
Potentially, yeah. Now, we're not saying that this means every single autistic person suddenly has psychic powers.
Right, let's not get carried away.
But it's an interesting connection to explore, especially when you consider how the brain processes information.
So are we saying that, like, certain areas of the brain are more active in autistic individuals when it comes to this knowing thing?
Well, the source mentions a couple of key areas, like the amygdala.
That's the emotion center, right?
Exactly. And the default mode network, which is involved in, like, internal thinking and daydreaming.
Ooh, that one sounds kind of fun.
It is. And these areas, they often function a bit differently in autistic individuals.
So maybe that difference is what allows them to tap into this claircognizance thing.
The source seems to think so. It's like they're picking up on these subtle cues and information that others might miss, almost like a sixth sense.
Hold on, are you saying their brains are like super-powered antennas for this kind of knowing? I mean, that's pretty incredible. But wouldn't that be overwhelming sometimes?
It's definitely a possibility.
Imagine being bombarded with all that extra information all the time.
And the source does acknowledge the challenges that come with this heightened sensitivity.
Right. It's not all sunshine and roses.
But remember, we're talking about a spectrum here.
Of course, every autistic person is different.
Exactly. So some might experience this more intensely than others.
Okay, so we've talked about this potential link between autism and claircognizance.
This inner knowing.
Yeah, exactly. But what does it all mean? Like, why should anyone care about this, especially someone who's autistic or knows someone on the spectrum?
Well, that's what I find so interesting about this source. It doesn't just throw out these ideas and leave us hanging.
It actually gets into the nitty-gritty of what this could mean for people's lives.
Right. It dives into how understanding this connection could actually be a game changer for autistic individuals.
Okay, I'm intrigued. A game changer, huh? In what way?
Think about it this way. If you've always been told you think differently, maybe you struggle to explain how you arrive at conclusions, but those conclusions turn out to be right on the money.
That would be so frustrating. Like, people don't believe you, even though you're right.
Exactly. And it can be really hard to build trust and confidence when that happens over and over again.
So you're saying this claircognizance thing, it could help autistic people validate their own experiences and knowledge.
The source suggests that, yeah. And it even quotes this autistic adult who describes it as, and I'm paraphrasing here, having the answer key to a test, but everyone else thinks you're cheating because you didn't show your work.
Wow, that's a really powerful analogy.
It is. It really highlights that feeling of knowing something, but not being able to explain it in a way that others understand.
So instead of seeing this as some kind of deficit, we should be encouraging autistic folks to tap into this inner knowing.
That's a big part of what the source is advocating for, yeah.
Like embracing it as a strength.
Exactly. Instead of trying to force autistic individuals to conform to, neurotypical ways of thinking and problem solving, maybe we should be supporting them in developing these unique strengths.
I'm starting to see how this could be a major shift in perspective. Like, we're not just focusing on what might be challenging, we're talking about celebrating a different way of experiencing the world.
Absolutely. And that can be incredibly empowering.
But hold on, isn't there a risk of, like, taking this too far?
Mhm.
Making it into some kind of magical cure-all?
That's where the critical thinking piece comes in. It's not about claiming that claircognizance will solve all the challenges that autistic individuals face, or even that everyone on the spectrum experiences it in the same way.
Right, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. But it does offer a new lens through which we can understand their experiences and strengths.
So it's more about expanding our understanding and opening up possibilities.
Yes, and appreciating the diversity of human experience.
I like that. So it's not a magic wand, but maybe more like a new tool in the toolbox.
A powerful tool.
Okay, I'm on board with that. But we've talked about some tips for developing this claircognizance. But does the source actually talk about how this could benefit autistic individuals in their daily lives? Like concrete examples?
It does. It gives a few really interesting examples like decision making,
Ooh, that's a big one.
right? Imagine being faced with a difficult choice. And instead of getting caught up in overthinking or analysis paralysis, you could tap into this deep inner knowing.
Make a decision and feel confident about it.
Exactly. Trusting your intuition and moving forward with certainty.
Okay, I can see how that would be super helpful, especially for folks who might struggle with anxiety or get overwhelmed with too many options.
The source also talks about how it could help with problem solving, especially for those who think outside the box.
Wait, are we saying autistic individuals could be like the ultimate creative thinkers?
Potentially. If you're able to perceive patterns and connections that others miss, you're naturally going to approach challenges from a different angle, which can lead to innovative solutions.
I like where this is going. So we're not just talking about feeling more confident, but also like potentially unlocking these hidden talents and abilities.
Exciting to think about.
It is. But what about the social and emotional side of things? Can claircognizance play a role there too?
That's a great question, and the source actually suggests that cultivating claircognizance can lead to deeper self-awareness and introspection for autistic individuals.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How does that work?
Well, imagine being able to tune into your own thoughts and feelings on a much deeper level.
Like becoming more aware of your own internal landscape.
Exactly. You might become more sensitive to your own needs, your triggers, and even your strengths.
So it's not just about knowing external stuff, it's about understanding yourself better.
And the source suggests that this increased self-awareness can lead to greater self-acceptance and even help you communicate your needs more effectively to others.
Wow, that's huge. So it could actually improve social interactions.
Potentially, yeah. Imagine being able to better sense the emotions and intentions of others.
Hold on, are we talking about mind reading now?
Not quite mind reading, but the source suggests that some autistic individuals might be particularly sensitive to, like, the energetic vibes of others, picking up on those subtle cues that others might miss.
Like they have this extra layer of perception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be helpful in navigating social situations, but it can also be overwhelming.
Especially in like crowded places or when there's a lot going on.
The source acknowledges that, yeah, which is why developing coping mechanisms and self-care practices is so important.
So it's about learning to manage that sensitivity, not trying to shut it down completely.
Finding that balance.
Okay, this is all super fascinating, but before we go too far down the rabbit hole, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Which is,
We're talking about a concept that, let's be honest, a lot of people are skeptical about, even dismissive.
that's true. Claircognizance isn't exactly mainstream thinking.
So how does the source address that? Like the fact that a lot of people might just roll their eyes at this whole idea.
Well, it acknowledges that skepticism up front, it doesn't shy away from the fact that claircognizance is often dismissed as, pseudoscience or superstition.
But it still argues that it's worth exploring.
Right. Especially for autistic individuals who might already be experiencing these abilities, even if they don't have a name for it.
So it's about approaching this with an open mind, not just shutting it down because it doesn't fit into our preconceived notions of how the world works.
Exactly. It's about challenging those assumptions and considering the possibility that there's more to reality than what we can see and touch.
I'm all for expanding our understanding of what's possible, but I also like to stay grounded in, what we can actually observe and measure.
Evidence-based, right?
Exactly. So does the source actually offer any scientific evidence to support these claims about claircognizance and autism?
It does touch on some preliminary research, but it's important to note that this is still an emerging field of study.
So we don't have all the answers yet.
Not yet, but there's growing interest in exploring the unique ways that autistic individuals perceive and process information, and some of these findings do align with the concept of claircognizance.
So there's enough there to suggest it's worth investigating further.
The source definitely encourages that, approaching this with, as you said, a healthy dose of skepticism, but also with a willingness to be surprised.
I like that. So it's not about blindly believing everything you hear, but also not closing yourself off to new possibilities.
Curiosity and critical thinking, the dynamic duo.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what claircognizance is, how it might be connected to autism, and the potential benefits and challenges.
And some of the scientific research that's starting to emerge.
Right, but before we move on, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the idea of finding a mentor.
Ah, yes, the guide on the side.
Exactly. The source mentioned it, but it didn't really go into much detail. So can you elaborate on that a bit? Like, why is mentorship so important in this context?
Well, having a mentor who understands and respects both claircognizance and neurodiversity can be incredibly valuable. It's like having someone who gets it.
Someone you can talk to without feeling judged or misunderstood.
Exactly. A good mentor can provide guidance and support, a safe space to explore these abilities.
And help you navigate those challenges we talked about, like what to do when things get overwhelming.
Right. They can offer practical tips and coping strategies.
So it's not just about learning techniques, it's about having that support system in place.
And remember, mentorship can take many forms. It doesn't have to be this formal structured relationship.
Could be a friend, a family member, even an online community.
As long as it's someone you trust and feel comfortable with.
So it's about finding your tribe, those people who resonate with your experiences.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes the importance of finding mentors who align with your values and beliefs, which is especially important when exploring something as personal as claircognizance.
That makes sense. You want to feel safe and respected.
Absolutely. And ultimately, the journey of developing claircognizance is a deeply personal one. It's about connecting with your own inner wisdom and intuition.
So a mentor can provide guidance, but the real work happens within.
Exactly. It's about honoring your own unique path and trusting your own inner compass.
Okay, that's a beautiful way to put it. So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about what claircognizance is, how it might relate to autism, the potential benefits, the challenges.
The research, the mentorship aspect.
Ooh, it's been a whirlwind.
A fascinating whirlwind.
It has. But I think it's time to bring it back to you, the listener. What are your takeaways from all of this?
Yeah, what's resonating with you?
What questions are popping up for you? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. So much to unpack from this deep dive into autism and claircognizance.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and we've covered a lot of ground, but before we wrap things up, I want to make sure we highlight those key takeaways, the stuff that really matters.
The aha moments.
Exactly. So we started by exploring this idea from cheap ABA autism and claircognizance, unlocking the secrets of inner knowing.
Which, if you haven't checked it out yet, is definitely worth a read.
Absolutely. And the source suggests this fascinating link between autism and claircognizance, this inner knowing that we've been talking about.
And we dug into how this isn't just some mystical mumbo-jumbo, but could actually be related to how the artistic brain is wired, that heightened sensitivity to patterns and energy we talked about.
Right. And even differences in how the brain processes emotions and internal thoughts.
Like those key areas, the amygdala and the default mode network.
See, we're dropping brain science terms now. We're getting fancy.
Got to keep things interesting. But for me, the real takeaway, the thing that really shifted my perspective was the idea that this claircognizance, it could be a strength for autistic individuals.
Not a deficit, not a quirk, but a real superpower.
Exactly. And the source even had that quote, something like, claircognizance is a way of life for some autistic folks, which I thought was really powerful.
It really highlights how what society often labels as different might actually be an untapped potential.
A different way of seeing and understanding the world.
And get this, the source didn't just stop at theories. It actually gave us some practical tips for cultivating claircognizance, like learning to trust your gut.
That intuition, that inner voice.
And practicing mindfulness and meditation.
Finding those moments of stillness to connect with that inner wisdom.
And even finding a mentor who understands and supports this journey.
Someone who can guide you and help you navigate the challenges.
So there's real actionable stuff here, not just airy-fairy concepts.
Exactly. Tools that anyone can use, whether you're on the spectrum or not.
But even with all this amazing potential, and I'm really feeling the excitement here, I think it's important to remember that this is still an evolving field. There's a lot we don't know yet.
Right. We're not claiming to have all the answers.
And it's crucial to approach this with, a healthy balance of curiosity and critical thinking.
Keep asking questions, keep exploring, but don't just blindly believe everything you hear.
Be discerning.
Exactly.
So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of autism and claircognizance, what are your takeaways?
What's resonating with you? What new insights or questions have emerged for you?
We've explored some pretty mind-blowing ideas, but the real journey begins now with you.
Taking this information and seeing how it applies to your own life, your own experiences.
Maybe you have your own stories about knowing things that you couldn't explain.
We'd love to hear them. Share your thoughts, your experiences, your questions.
Because ultimately, it's through sharing and connecting that we learn and grow together.
So keep those minds open, those intuitions sharp, and keep diving deep.
Until next time, keep exploring.